Okay, the good news is this should be the last time in this class that you see a PowerPoint. Terrific. After this, it's all hands-on. Spreadsheets, databases, maps, learning how to be a database journalist rock star, right? Now we went over why it's important to have data in your stories. We talked about writing your stories with data. We found out how to find data online, and now we'll go over how to actually go about requesting data. And part of requesting data is knowing what's open to the public by the North Carolina Opens Records Act. So let's dive right in. Okay, this is North Carolina Public Records Act, General Statute, Chapter 132, right up here. And I'll go over some of the highlights in the following slides, but I just want to show you how long it is and some of the key points, including right up top, what they define as a public record. I'll talk about that in a little bit later. But here's information on confidential communications. And as we scroll down, confidential information, settlements, what's open under the North Carolina Athletic Conference, criminal investigations right here. Look how thorough it is. It's a really great resource for journalists, and you should definitely know the highlights. Law enforcement agency recordings. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Databases. Bingo. This is what we're mainly interested in, and we'll dive into that a little bit later. But they also include emergency response plans, sensitive public security information. We've had the prison systems turn us down data because sensitive public security information. Alarms, confidentiality, trial preparations. Scroll, scroll, scroll. It's a great resource. You'll want to know the highlights, especially if you actually do get a job as a reporter, and it's important to know what you're allowed to have and what's an exemption under the Open Records Act. And there we go. Well, let's talk about some highlights. We found the restaurant inspection data online, so we know we're able to request the raw data. But sometimes you stumble across something like this. And these are the actual forms that the inspector would fill out. And this is the Food Establishment Inspection Report form for Mecklenburg County. And you can see some of the information here is exactly what showed up online. Establishment name, this is where the inspector would fill in the establishment. Establishment ID, etc. Date of the inspection, establishment type, whether it's a restaurant, a nail salon, tattoo parlor, and same thing down here. City, county, whether it's a first inspection or a re-inspection. So a lot of this is in the data online. And then you come over here and see the actual different types of violations. Employee health, good hygiene, preventing contamination by hands, etc. So as a reporter, if I were to find this online, I would know that eventually all this information would end up in a database somewhere. There's no way that a county or a city would fill out all this information on paper records and just keep them stored in paper. Somewhere, somehow, they're going to get entered into a data set. And if I found out this, I'd essentially ask for this, but in electronic format. Okay, say we wanted to request some data. In this case, it's going to be the restaurant inspections for Mecklenburg County, right? We already took care of the first step. We found the data and we know it's available because they posted online. The second step, what I like to do is find a specific person to send my request to. Now, I've been on the job long enough where I sort of know who to send my data request to, but a lot of new reporters, or if you switch beats or switch jobs, you like to get an actual person as opposed to like a Freedom of Information office or a public information office. So how do you actually find a specific person, right? We're starting at Mecklenburg County, and this is the link to the restaurant inspection data. What I would do, I go up and click on search, and a common phrase that you can use is public information officer. Sometimes it's called media contact or spokesperson. The first link right away, public information for Mecklenburg County. Let's try the first link. Okay, this takes us to their public information department. Great, I'm sure they have a general mailing address, which they do, office location, but this is even better. Right here, contact Rick Christenberry. He is the public information for Mecklenburg County. It gives me his email. It also gives me his phone number. So I got three terrific things. I got a name, email, and phone number, and even though my request is going to be in writing via email, what I'm first going to do is call him up, say this is Gavin, say I'm at the Observer, and kind of give him a heads up that my request is coming. But a key step, finding a specific person to send your request to. A lot of times that's as simple as searching on the web. Okay, putting all that together, here is an example of a standard data request that I often write. It starts out with a specific person's name. Hello, Rick. In this case, it's Rick Christenberry. He's the public information officer for Mecklenburg County. My name is Gavin Off. I'm a reporter at the Charlotte Observer. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me this morning. Often I call up the public information officer before I actually make the request just to give them the heads up that one is coming. Pursuant to the state's open records law, General Statute 132, I'm requesting an electronic copy of Mecklenburg County's restaurant inspection database. The database is used to create the searchable report below, and I provide a link to that report that we looked at before where you can download information on a specific restaurant. And this sort of hints that, okay, I know this data is out there, it's already online, I want the data behind it. Please provide all inspection records, all publicly available rows and fields from 2015 to present. What I'm saying here is I don't want just specific columns, I want all publicly available records, and I want a specific date, 2015 to present. I request that the data be in a format that is compatible with Microsoft Excel. A fixed width or delimited text file is fine. Okay, I don't want it as a PDF, I don't want it as a Word document. These are the formats that I like. Please provide a record layout or a code sheet if one is needed to better understand the data. Code sheet, records layout, we'll talk about them in a couple minutes. As a Charlotte Observer journalist, I request that all fees for the data be waived. The information will be used in public service reporting. Again, sometimes they'll charge fees depending on the time that it takes for them to give us the data or the format that it takes. But this, I'm a journalist, I'm requesting that those fees be waived. If this request or any part of it is denied, please cite the specific exemption to the state's open records laws. That also puts them on their heels a little bit, so they just can't deny the correct request willy-nilly. Please respond to this request as promptly as possible as the law requires. We went over that. And then close it out. Thank you, and let me know if you have any questions. And of course, I always put my name and cell phone. But this isn't a surprise. I've already talked to Rick. He knows me. He knows what I'm going to request. And this is just the formal request in writing. Okay, a couple times today I mentioned code sheets and record layouts. So I'm going to show you an example of both. And this is a code sheet for Mecklenburg County's restaurant inspection data. And you can see it comes as a PDF. Now this code sheet actually starts on page 3. So let me scroll down for that. We'll start here real quick. And why code sheets are important? As I mentioned before, most of the time data is entered into a computer manually, right? And that can be really tedious to people. Trust me, I've done it before. So every time in this case where there was a violation where someone's certification wasn't present, that violation was entered in the data as a number 1, right? We'll keep scrolling. I'm going to skip 2 and 3 and go to 4. Each time there was a violation where someone was eating, tasting, drinking, or using tobacco where that person should not have been, meaning back in the kitchen, that was listed in the data as a violation number 4. In other words, these words were not included in the data. Same thing here. A number 5 was listed if someone has discharge from their eyes, nose, or mouth. Disgusting, right? And a number 6 if their hands weren't clean or properly washed. And you can see how many different codes or different violations there were just for the Mecklenburg County restaurant inspection data. Bare hands being contacted would be 7. Hand washing sinks supplied and accessible would, all you'd see in the data is the number 8. You wouldn't see any of these words. And that's why this document is so important, because it translates the numbers into actual violations. And I'm just going to keep scrolling just to give you a taste of how long it is. We're up to 13, where food should be separated and protected. That would be a violation, 13. Violation 17, where the food wasn't properly reheated. I think it goes all the way down to the 50s. 26, all you would see in the data is the number 26, and you'd have to translate that to toxic substances properly identified, stored, and used. And once we actually dive onto the hands-on portion of the class, I'll show you how you update the data and turn that 26 into those words. But this is why code sheets are so important. Otherwise, you get the data, you'd see a 1, you'd see a 43, you'd see a 17, and you wouldn't know what that means. Okay, here's another example of a code sheet, and this one actually comes from the US Census. And this one's quite popular for a couple reasons. 1, because it's lengthy, and 2, because it's used a lot in a lot of different data sets. A lot of databases will have a field for location, whether it be city, county, or state. You know, that's a pretty common field in the data, just like the name of a person would be there. And what this data set does is list the state and county FIPS code. Now, what the heck is a FIPS code? Well, instead of writing out Alabama each time in the data set, the data would just include 01. And for Arizona, it would just include 04. So you would never see the word Alabama or Arizona in the data, just 01 or 04. And then in the column field, you'd see the actual name, or you'd see the actual number for each county rather than the name of the county. So 01001 would mean Alabama, Autauga County. 01013, Alabama, Butler County. And you can go down for Arizona, same thing. 04019, Pima County, Arizona. And what that lets me do as a data reporter is translate the code for state and the code for county into a state and county name. And as I scroll down, you can see exactly how many there are. So tons and tons of data. There's Connecticut's. There are some 3,000, I think 400 counties in the U.S. And of course, North Carolina has 100 counties. Let me get down to North Carolina. I'll show you North Carolina. There's Montana. There's New Jersey, my home. Here starts North Carolina. North Carolina FIPS code for state is 37. And then the first county, 001, is Alamance County, North Carolina. We have to go back up here to see the rest. 37, North Carolina. 003, Alexander County. 005, Allegheny County. And you can see they're usually odd numbers. 23, Burke. 25, Cabarrus. These are FIPS codes, state and county FIPS code for all 3,000 plus counties, 50 plus states. Again, this helps us translate our data from numbers into words. Okay, so we went over code sheets, and they, for the most part, focus on specific columns. Record layouts, on the other hand, usually focus on the entire data set. And this is a record layout, actually a really lengthy one. It's 52 pages long, and it's for data that I'm currently working with. And this is the Criminal and Information Statistical Extract file from the North Carolina Administrative Office of the Courts. And what this database has is information on every criminal case in North Carolina in the past 5 years, right? I think totally there might be around 25 million records in this data set. Well, here's what the record layout looks like. Again, it's a PDF, and it first begins with what the actual data tables include. Okay, so it includes a case record, an offense record, information. These are actually individual spreadsheets in the data. One deals with the case, one deals with the offense, one deals with special conditions for the case, another one deals with witnesses, attorneys, if the State Bureau of Investigation was involved, etc. So in this data set alone, there are 11 massive spreadsheets, and I know that right here. Each spreadsheet has its own name, right? And we scroll down. These are appendices. Here's just an overview of the data. It tells you what the data measures and what's included in it. But we're going to get down to the actual record layout. And here's what it looks like. You can see they call it a file layout right here. And this is going to sound like a foreign language to you, but eventually you'll get the hang of it. And what this tells me as a data reporter is in the case record, the case spreadsheet, these are the different columns, and these are what each column means. The first column is going to be called in the spreadsheet CR cases. And you can sort of ignore these because they're indented. So I would look down to here, and CR cases is going to go up to 13. Now what does that mean? It means it's going to be 13 characters long, and each character is a number or letter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. It's a space. And that's going to be a specific file number. Okay, that one's complicated, so let's move on. The next field in the data is going to be called CRRTYP. And if you were to translate, here's the translation right here. Case filing court type. Is it a CR record, meaning is it a misdemeanor, or it is a CRS record, meaning a felony? Again, a little complicated, so let's move on. This one we should understand better. The third column in the data, again it's 1, 2, 3, is CRRNAM. Now if I just saw that as a header of a column in a spreadsheet, I wouldn't know what that means. But if you look over here, the record layout tells me that it's the defendant's name. And it's going to be written as last name, comma first name, comma middle initial, and then a suffix if the person has a suffix. And we'll talk about a little bit more, but these records go from character number 17 to character number 44. And that's important when we come to importing data into a database. And now let's keep going. Down here, when you see the field header called CRRDOB, you can translate that into the defendant's date of birth, CRR race, and that's the defendant's race. And this one actually has a little code sheet right below it. If the race says A, it means Asian, B, black, H, Hispanic, W, white, and so on. So this record layout actually has a code sheet mixed in. Same thing here. CRR sex means the defendant's sex. And again, if you see a M, male, F, female, etc. But this is an example of a code sheet, and this makes me better understand the data, because otherwise, if I were just to get a spreadsheet and saw a header that said CRR TDT, well, what the heck does that mean? I would have no clue. But I look at the record layout, okay, that's a case trial date. And just to give you an example of how long it is. Here we go. It's just going on record after record after record. Like I said, this data set's around 20 some million records, and I would bet if you lined up all the columns, it's several columns long, several thousand columns long. Now this starts the second table or second spreadsheet of the data, and this one's just going to concern offenses. And again, we start off with a whole new field, and the first field, so in the A column essentially, is going to be a header named CROFFNS. And you look over here, okay, that's the offense record. And you can scroll down right here. This one, CROCDT. What the heck does that mean? I look over, that's the charged offense date. So that's when the person's offense actually happened, whether it be a robbery or a murder, etc. And here's another one with not only a record layout, but also with a code sheet mixed in. The column name CRD PLE, that you translate into the plea code, and the code sheet would be right under it. If you were to see a GA in that column, that's guilty Alford plea. GU is straight guilty. RS, responsible, etc. And here's one where they have the actual verdict, not necessarily the guilty plea, and they give a verdict code under each one. But this is all for the offense table, and you can see how many columns are in just the offense table. Here's a second offense table right here, number 3, and again we have all these different columns. This one, it's a driving violation, CRIVSP, and that's the translated into convicted speed, so the person's speeding. Special conditions table. And here's another table or another spreadsheet for just witness information in criminal cases. So you start off with the witness record. Then again, if I were to see the header or the column name CRWNAM without a record layout, I would have no idea what that means. But I can look over here and say, okay, that column is going to include the witness's name. And again, CRWAGY, no idea what that means. Scroll over here, witness agency code, and maybe they're with the ABC or ALE or SBI, State Bureau of Investigation, etc. But this is an example of a record layout. It tells me about the data. It helps me understand the column headers better, understand the length of each column, and that's what this position means. And it even provides a few code sheets in the data itself. Record layout for the Administrative Office of the Court's criminal extract file. A massive, massive record layout. Here's one more example of a record layout. And this again comes in the form of a PDF. Mecklenburg County Police Department puts out crime data every day. And this record layout lets me know what exactly I'm looking at. You can see it kind of gives you a little bit of introduction, a little bit of frequently asked questions. But if you scroll down, you start getting to the actual record layout. And they call it a description of the data fields. See, what this says is it gives me the field name right here and also a description of the field, just so I can make sense of the data better. So complaint underscore NO is a unique number attached to each complaint. Block number, block NO, is the actual block number of the address for the incident. And you can scroll down. Street underscore name is a street name. A lot of these you can sort of make sense just because of the way they're written, but some of them might be a little bit more complicated. Like place 1. Okay, it's a general place type. Place 2, when you see that on a column header, it's a more specific place type. Clearance status, clearance date, etc. And this is an important one. NIBRS underscore HI underscore class. And this essentially is the offense description, whether it's a larceny, a robbery, a homicide, etc. So that. Okay, believe it or not, that should be the end of PowerPoints for this class. From now on, it's going to be spreadsheets, database, maps, all hands-on stuff. We'll have a really good time. We'll learn a lot. We already went over why data is important, how to use it in stories, how to find it online, how to request it, along with sort of making sense of the public records law, record layouts, and code sheets. For now, do some homework, read chapters 2 to 4 of data literacy, and I'm looking forward to a great hands-on class next time. See you guys.